How do you price your architectural services? Maybe you charge a percentage of build costs or come up with a fixed price, or maybe you charge by the hour. But what can we learn from how other one-to-one service providers price and position their services? In this episode of Architecture Business Club, I chat with Janine Coombes about a different approach to pricing and positioning your services. Architecture Business Club is the weekly podcast for solo and small firm architecture practice owners just like you who want to build a profitable, future-proof architecture business that fits around their life. I'm the host, Jon Clayton, and if you want to get notified when I release a new episode and get access to free resources and exclusive offers, then go to mrjohnclayton.co.uk/ABC and sign up to my free weekly email newsletter. Right, let's get on with the show. Janine Coombes is a service positioning expert who can help you earn much more from your one-to-one services without slogging your guts out or moving to a complicated business model. She has an extensive background in business and marketing, including working with big brands like EE, Orange and Europcar. And for the last 7 years, she's been helping small service-based business owners to better position and sell their offers. She regularly speaks on big stages like Atomicon, You Are the Media and MarketEd.Live. She's also a skilled writer and flat out one of the most creative content creators out there. You can grab Janine's free guide, 6 Steps to Charging More with 100% Confidence at janinecoombes.co.uk/charge-more-workbook. Janine, welcome to Architecture Business Club.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the lovely intro.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's nice to get the chance to have a chat with you. Before we dive straight into today's topic, I hear you've done some stand-up comedy, and I wanted to ask, how did it feel the first time you went out on stage to do comedy?
Now, I feel like I might have oversold myself here because the first time was also the last time. But it was great. I mean, I did a stand-up comedy course, culminating in a showcase where we all had to do a 5-minute set.
You're far braver than me. I would not have the guts to do that. And I don't know, was it a good thing that it wasn't quite as packed a room? Was that good for the first time?
For me, I thought it was, it really allayed any nerves I had because I have spoken on stages before for hundreds of people. So 7, I thought, oh God, I can handle 7 people.
Well done, you. So let's move on to the topic that we were going to talk about. And typically, there are 3 ways that architecture practices typically charge for their services. A percentage fee of build costs, hourly rate, or a fixed price. But today, we're going to talk about a different approach to pricing architectural services. This also applies to other service-based business owners as well. And it's based on how coaches and consultants do things. And we're also going to cover positioning and niching. So I'm really looking forward to digging into this. I think it's going to be really interesting. So, Janine, what common mistakes do you see service providers make when it comes to pricing?
I wouldn't tell people, stop charging by the hour, stop charging by percentage of the build cost, whatever you're doing at the moment. But what I would say is a common mistake is selling architectural services, if you know what I mean, instead of selling the benefit. If you can find a way to promote yourself based on the end result, and part of that is being clear on who you want to work with, ideally, who you've worked with in the past that you've really enjoyed. What did they say they wanted when they first spoke to you? If you can position it around that and carve out a corner of the marketplace for yourself that is just yours, you're going to have less comparing with competitors, because in theory, like a direct competitor becomes less of a thing. Like there are fewer direct competitors if you can carve out your corner of the marketplace. And it's going to make it easier to make sales as well, because people who you love working with are going to see you and say, oh, okay, I want to work with that person. And you become the only person for them, rather than in a sea of architects, you're just yet another architect, and leaves you open to people comparing you based on price, cost per hour, or cost, overall cost, project cost. You want to, as much as possible, move away from being a commodity if you can.
Oh, that's really interesting. And that's the opposite of the way that a lot of people within our industry do things. It is often about selling the service rather than the outcome, whether that's building design or selling plans. So that's it's a different way to approach things for sure.
Yeah, and it could be quite a big departure. And I mean, at the end of the day, people are looking for an architect. So you can't be too esoteric.
Yeah.
I can imagine you still have to appear in front of people as an architect. It's like, yes, I can solve, these are the things that I actually do. You're in safe hands for these things that you're going to expect an architect to be able to do. But yeah, I think the conversation we're going to have today, it's drawing on what I would advise coaches. My bread and butter is coaches, consultants, mentors, that kind of one-to-one service provider. What can we learn? What could we explore for architects to cross-pollinate and learn from those industries?
I love that, because I think that there's so much that we can learn from people in different professions and different industries, that we can cherry pick the good bits and apply those to our own business and our own industry. So I love that idea that we're talking about, how people from perhaps another world do things, and looking at how we can apply that to architecture business owners. I think that's really great. So how can we, as architectural service providers, architects, you mentioned a little bit there about how we present ourselves. So how can we better present our services to potential clients?
So this is easier if you've been running for a few years. Because when you've been running for a few years, you have, many clients under your belt, and you know exactly who you like working with and exactly who you don't like working with. When you're first starting out, it's a bit more of a trial and error. You're deep in the trial and error. You think you've landed a good client, and then they don't pay you, or they force you out of scope, or horrible things happen. So when you've been around the block a bit, it's easier. For my process is based on people who've been around the block and had a good many clients already. Because in an ideal world, you would have a look at the roster of clients you've had in the past, identify the ones that you really love working with. They brought you really exciting projects. They've paid you well. They've paid you on time. They don't quibble. They don't nitpick. They don't try and negotiate you down. They don't try and compare you to other people too much. And then you can start noticing the themes in those clients. And usually there are themes with the types of projects and the types of personalities of the people that, they've come up in your research when looking at your old client base. And then you can, once you've got that clear, then you can start appealing to those people. So you can imagine an example might be like, maybe you really love working with like boho people who have an eccentric approach, and they want you to run with it, and they've got a massive budget, or, you can imagine any kind of variation on that theme of a mixture of values, personality, what they want from you, budget, and using those combinations, you can put together your own unique proposition. I don't know whether I answered the question there. I went off on one.
It's fine. No, there was some really valuable insights there. So if we reflect on the clients that we've already worked with, reflect on those previous projects, and look at which clients we enjoyed working with, which ones paid on time, which was generally a good experience for us. It was a good working relationship between us as the service provider and them as the client. We can hone in our messaging on our positioning on attracting more people like that. Yeah.
And it becomes a virtuous circle, because if you get a few more clients like that, and then because you're focusing in on that and you enjoy working with those people, you get better results. They tell their friends. So you sort of get into the right circles, and hopefully you get more referrals of the right kind.
That's interesting. Getting the right kind of referrals. Is that a common problem that you found with other service providers, maybe getting the wrong referrals?
Yeah, it's rare that I come across a client who comes to me saying, yeah, I'm getting all my work through referrals, but they're great. Every single one is completely my ideal client. I mean, it's just really hard to control what kind of referrals you get. I think it's luck. If you've managed to get pure referrals that are brilliant, I think either you're very, very easy to please or you've been very, very lucky. I think, especially in the early years, it's so tempting, no matter what your business is, so tempting to accept all the business. It's like any business is good business. I need money rolling in. I need clients. And then gradually you start to think, hang on a minute. I don't think I really want that. But to an extent, I think it's another theme I see when working with service-based business owners is what I hear a lot of is, I like the variety though. People are telling me to niche, but I like the variety. And I think it's not 100% true. I think you can have variety without accepting non-ideal clients.
That's a good point. I wanted to ask about fee proposals and what approach that you'd recommend when sending out a fee proposal or quotation. Have you got any thoughts on that, Janine?
Paint the picture for me. What's happened? Where are they in the sales process?
Well, okay. It could be that somebody's either got in touch, made an initial inquiry. Again, different architectural practices will have a slightly different way of doing this, but it will either be a case where somebody's got in touch, they've had a conversation with the service provider, maybe there's been an email exchange, and then they'll cut straight to the chase and send them out a price, or more commonly what will happen is perhaps they might go out to visit the customer, particularly if it's maybe a home owner that's looking to do a home renovation. They might go and see them in person, visit the property, and then follow that up, often with a simple proposal that perhaps just gets emailed off afterwards. I'm just wondering if there's any better ways that could be done, if there's any better ways to presenting and sending a fee proposal than just pinging it off via email and hoping for the best.
It's a really good question. So I think if somebody has just emailed you and asked for a proposal without any communication, I think that it's not necessarily a red flag, but I would hold off from sending just a blank proposal. I mean, you don't know, do you, until you've actually had a conversation. But I mean, those conversations and those the insights you're going to get and the information you need to put together a quote, like an accurate quote proposal, that's all part of the relationship building. So I definitely wouldn't share any pricing, any accurate pricing or detailed pricing before that relationship building has been done and the information gathering has been done. I suppose after you've maybe gone to visit, maybe you've looked around, you've done the due diligence or whatever you call it, and you've got enough information to put that proposal together. I think emailing it is fine. Some people have they prefer actually to present the proposal. So that's one idea. And before I talk about that, I would like to state, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you feel like you've got your proposal process and it's working for you, disregard what I'm going to say. If you feel like you're, winning the proposals you want. But I have had certain clients have had success with actually saying, okay, so we've had a conversation. I've looked around the house or looked around the property. We've met in person. I'm going to do your proposal. What I normally do is present that back, and then they can present it. And what that allows you to do is cover off any objections as you go along. It's so much harder to say on a piece of paper to explain the value of all those different stages and explain that you can't haggle. You can't take out that chunk, that chunk costs, say, $2,000 to do that chunk. No, you can't take that out because the whole thing will fall flat and it won't work. So it's easier to present that face to face or on Zoom rather than sending it via email and hoping for the best. Another point to make is in any way, shape or form, if you can put the final price after reiterating the benefit of what you're helping the person achieve. Like say they've said, what I really want is I want my mum to move in with me and I want her to feel like she's part of the family, but also to have her own space. Like, you can imagine the conversations that are around that might be quite emotional and might be quite rich and full of certain language. If you can reiterate that on the proposal before putting the price, instead of putting the price next to some hours or a percentage of the overall cost, that will remind them what they're paying for is the result. They're not paying for your hours. Does that make sense?
I love that. So if in those initial conversations, before we get to the point of presenting a fee proposal or sending off a quotation, we can dig into, find out what the underlying reasons are, like the kind of emotional hook, if you like, as to why they're doing this thing. And then to give them a reminder of that when we present that price, that say, look, you know, this is the price, but this is to give you this transformation of, you know, your elderly relative moving in and you know, all being under one roof, whatever the reasons are. I could see how that could be really kind of powerful when you're presenting your offer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether architects tend to do that. How much do they delve into the whys?
Well, in my experience, probably nowhere near enough. That's something that I probably didn't do for quite a while throughout my career of selling architectural services. And it's only in latter years that I've started doing that and tried to integrate it into my own sales process. So yeah, to try and find out, really, like, people will often ring up and say, you know, we need some plans for a house extension, for example. And so they kind of have an idea of what they think they need. But then actually then digging in and finding out the reasons behind it, it really does give you a much fuller picture of how motivated they are to go ahead. And also I think exploring the consequences of not doing it as well. Actually, they have reasons why they want to do it, but also asking them about what are the stakes, what's at stake here? You know, what are the consequences of not doing this thing? Which is another interesting thing that I've started asking people as well.
Remember, don't forget to subscribe to my free weekly email newsletter. You can do that at mrjohnclayton.co.uk/ABC. And if you're enjoying this episode, then please visit podchaser.com, search for Architecture Business Club and leave a 5-star review. Now back to the show.
Yes, that's really interesting, isn't it? Like, how motivated are they? Because you could spend hours a month doing quotes for people who aren't really that motivated to take action right now. I mean, that would be a really frustrating place to be in unless you probe the why now, what's really going on, how motivated are you to take action within the next few months? You might end up thinking, oh, they've said no because of me. And it's not, it's because they just weren't in a position to buy yet. And that can start refining your sales process and your marketing. Because I always say, sell to people who are ready to buy, which sounds really obvious, but so many people don't. They meet people a little bit too early on in the process, and they have those sales conversations too early on. And when they end up in a no, it feels like a rejection, like a personal rejection. It's just like they're not ready to buy yet. They weren't ready to buy.
That's a really interesting point, and I think sometimes as, you know, architects, architectural service providers, we can forget that potentially it's a huge investment for people to make, particularly if it's a homeowner that's doing some kind of renovation or extension. Other than buying the house, it might be their single biggest investment that they make in the whole life. You think how far ahead and how much research you might do if you're buying a car or thinking about a family holiday. Often it's done months and months in advance of when you're actually ready to buy anything. And I think we forget sometimes how long that lead-in time can be before someone is ready to buy.
Yeah. Years ago, we had a terrible experience with a very pushy, you know, she was part of a bigger company and she was sent around to give us a quote for our kitchen. And we were just speculating. We were just like, what's possible with this remodeling of, you know, do we knock through? Do we not knock through? And she tried to go for the sale there and then. It's like, we haven't even decided whether we're knocking through or not yet. How can you sell us? And she was doing all these weird like imaginary calls to the manager. Yes, I'm sorry. I don't think it's going to be a yes. She was trying to pressure us into buying. What's going on? This is weird.
No way.
I don't know whether those sort of things work or not. They must work for a proportion of people.
Well, maybe. I mean, when it comes to getting quotes, I mean, most people will tend to get at least free quotes. And this goes for kind of other service providers as well. But if people are going to be spending a significant amount of money on an architect or an architectural service provider, they're probably going to get free quotes. So in a competitive industry like architecture, how can we stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, I think that goes down to, we're going to have the conversation about niching. How au fait are architects as an industry about niching? Do we have to give it a definition or not?
Let's do the niching 101 or the niching for the listeners overseas.
Okay, right. So I've got a love-hate, mainly hate relationship with the word niching because I think it implies that your whole business focuses on a very narrow proportion of the available marketplace. I don't like that because it feels very restrictive, and it is restrictive. Like, it works for a minority of companies where they've taken a very, very small proportion of their audience and they've really, really focused on it. But these companies are usually very big, usually the way they've worked it. So they've got the volume. What you don't have to do that. You can have a range of services for different people, and each offer has to have a very, very sharp target market for each one. So if Janine had I'm talking about myself in third person now. If Janine had a fantasy football league for architects and I had an architect firm, I would have like an offer for let's use the example of granny annex. I'd have, right, you're looking for a granny annex? I've got the perfect thing for you. It's for people who absolutely love their loved one and they want to bring them in, but they want to be part of the, exactly how I articulated it before. That's the offer for that person, right? And then I'd have a different one for total home remodeling, adding at least 33% to the footprint, and they've got a budget of at least 500 grand. I don't know whether that's a lot or little. I don't know. They've got at least a budget of, let's say, $1 million,
Yeah.
And that would be a very specific profile of person. And then you might have a third one. You start with one and get that going, and then you can add more as you go along. But being really targeted with the offers that you've got would allow you to cut through. It's like, oh, well, you want this person. You can absolutely pick one and you could go deep on that one thing. You could be the kitchen diner person. I don't know whether that's a desirable place to go for. You could be the Victorian conversion kitchen diner person. And you've done so many of them, you can almost do them. You can knock them out, bang, 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 bang. And you could be more competitive on price because you were the absolute, I know the problems that occur with Victorian properties. And I know what you're going to need before you're even going to ask it. And yes, you could reduce the amount of time you could spend on each one because you're such an expert, but you could arguably charge a little bit more because you'd be able to pick bits up that a non-specialist would miss. Do you know what I mean?
I get it. I'm
getting very excited. I'm planning a whole architectural company. I'm like, oh, I could have an offer for this person. Yeah, I'm launching tomorrow.
Do it. That's really interesting though, because I love that idea because I think there's probably some misconceptions there about this idea of niching, that in niching it's like, oh, well, I have to just be like the garage conversion guy or whatever. Whereas actually, as long as the offer's a niche, that you could actually still serve people in a variety of different ways, as long as the messaging is like crystal clear and very specific for each of those individual offers.
Yeah, and it would help if they came under the same banner. It would help. If you could imagine, if you were the garage conversion guy, that would be really handy. You would cut through really, really well. And then you could have offers within that category. You could say, you've got a small, medium, or large. You could have, what would large be? Double garage, dugout, basement, pool installation. I don't know.
Okay. So as long as try and keep those offers within the same realm.
If you can,
don't want to be doing like, garage conversion guy stroke comedy juggler expert.
Well, no. I mean, that would be really diverse, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, if you had an architecture firm that had, you logically could have total home conversion, garage conversion, extension, kitchen diner extension, annex. You could have those things. If you could have them all still with an umbrella over them, like I only deal with people whose properties are 10 million plus.
Yeah.
And they want everything to a certain standard. What are those indicators that those people would want? If you can have a theme, it would be better.
Got it. A common thing is that there'll be some practices that will specialize just in what we call like domestic client work. So homeowners doing renovations and extensions.
Of course.
But then there's also commercial clients that maybe, it could be works to business premises, or it could be a housing development or a property developer, or kind of anything else, anybody else that needs architectural services that isn't doing works on their home. So that's another way that it could be kind of contained within a niche. It could be we just do commercial work and these are the offers, or we just do the domestic client work and these are the ways that you can work with us.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I hadn't really got that in my head. Exactly. Yeah, you can imagine there might be niches, let's use that word, within the commercial sector as well.
So
like warehouse remodeling or something.
On this subject of niches then, we talked a little bit about niching and some of the benefits. Are there any other benefits of niching that we haven't already covered that are worth sharing?
I think one of the benefits of niching, one of the almost side benefits, because the main benefit is you're going to cut through easier and you're going to be able to get easier, inverted commas, leads and arguably charge more. I think it does have a halo effect. Once you've cracked it, it does have a momentum of itself, and you will start getting those better quality referrals. People, you'll be known for stuff. I think it's just a sort of the ball is rolling in your favor, and it will allow you to say no to the smaller jobs. I don't know. I can imagine somebody specializing in smaller jobs, but if the jobs that you find less desirable, they will crop up less, and you'll have to say yes less to those less desirable jobs. It does focus your mind, and you when you get it right, it does click. You're like, I found my groove.
Yeah.
And it does. It's good for your confidence. It's good for your marketing cut through. It's like a halo effect, hits all elements of your business.
So if there's anyone who's struggling to price their architectural services, could you give a quick summary of what you'd recommend to do based on what we've talked about today?
Ooh, if they're struggling, are we talking about somebody a bit earlier on in their architectural business?
Not necessarily. It could be somebody that's been, I've been doing it for a long, long time, and even sometimes I question pricing and have struggles with it. So it could be somebody that's an established business owner.
What I like doing sometimes for myself, and I know it's helpful for clients as well, is sometimes you can almost, what's the word? Not taunt yourself, but you can say, look at what these other people are charging. And they're not going to do the detailed work that you're going to do. They're not going to care as much as you. They've got other costs built in. Sometimes looking at what the slicker, bigger businesses are charging for things can give you confidence that you can charge more. So that's something like practical that you can do. A lot of it is experience and charge. When somebody bites your hand off that you've charged too little. And gradually you learn to charge a bit more. The biggest tip, which we've already shared, is placing the price in your own mind as much as the client's. If you can really associate the price, what you're charging, with the benefit you're bringing to their life, that how will their life be afterwards? What have other clients said after you've helped them remodel their house or in the business context, after you've created this, and knowing 100% that it's safe and fit for purpose and whatever you've managed to do for testimonials, if you manage to get some kind words after you've done a job, associate in your own mind that the price that's what they're paying for, not your time, not the actual drawings that you're doing for them. That's one of the best things you can do. But a lot of it is just iterations, getting a bit bolder and the next price, put it up a bit, and the next price, put it up a bit.
I love that. That's a great tip. And we could even do that after every project, I suppose, just keep tweaking it upwards.
Yeah. I know quite a few people who every sale they get, they add on whatever it is, 5-10%. And they've made another sale, they put on 5-10%.
Brilliant. Janine, is there anything else you wanted to say that we haven't covered in the conversation today?
I feel like we've been very efficient. I feel like we've covered pricing and proposals and niching and touched on sort of sales processes and things. I think, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Brilliant. Well, we've done a good job then. Before we kind of wrap everything up, I wanted to ask, I love travel and discovering new places. And I was wondering if you could tell me one of your favourite places and what you love about it.
Now, do you mean a building?
Not necessarily. It can be a building, or it could just be any place, anywhere in the world, down the end of your street, abroad.
Oh, that's all right. Because what springs to mind is down the end of my street. we moved to this area a couple of years ago. I'm now in North Hampshire, and one of the things I absolutely love about it is I can walk to Ludshot Common from my house. So one of my favourite things to do on a weekend is get away from my family on my own, and I walk through Ludshot Common and I go to this posh deli place that has a restaurant. But if I get there early, I can just have a nice cup of coffee on my own. And, the walking clears my mind, and I have a little notebook and I write some notes down, and, it could be anything. It could be journaling. It could be ideas for my business. It could be anything at all. And I walk back and it's lovely. That's one of my favourite places and favourite things to do at the moment.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I love that. Brilliant. So where can people go online to find out more about you, Janine?
If they want to come and connect with me, LinkedIn is my favourite social media channel. So look up Janine Coombes at LinkedIn and don't be shy, send me a connection request. If you're just nosy and want to see what I'm all about, then go to janinecoombes.co.uk.
Awesome. And can you remind everyone how to grab your free Charging More resource?
Yes. So my freebie takes you through the 6 steps to charging more with confidence. It's a great little resource, even if I do say so myself. And I can't remember the URL. JanineCoombes.co.uk/charge-more-workbook, is it?
I've got it here. It's JanineCoombes.co.uk/charge-more-workbook. And I got it. You got it right anyway. And I will put that in the show notes so that everybody can go and get that. Absolutely go and grab that from Janine. It's a really good resource. So Janine, just thanks ever so much for coming on the show. It's been great to chat with you today.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, John. I've really enjoyed it.
In the next episode, I chat with Chris Baxter, founder of Studio 11 Architecture. You'll discover how business coaching transformed Chris's architectural practice and learn how coaching can have a profound impact, not just on your business, but also on your personal growth as a business owner. You won't want to miss it. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Architecture Business Club. If you liked this episode, think other people might enjoy it, or just want to show your support, then please visit podchaser.com, search for Architecture Business Club, and leave a glowing 5-star review. It would mean so much to me and makes it easier for new listeners to discover the show. If you just want to connect with me, you can do that on most social media platforms. Just search for @Mr. Jon Clayton. The best place to connect with me online, though, is on LinkedIn. You can find a link to my profile in the show notes. Remember, running your architecture business doesn't have to be hard, and you don't need to do it alone. This is Architecture Business Club,